Hey everybody, it's Will Venus. Welcome back to my channel and to a brand new episode of Cobble Icons. How are you all doing? Yes, so I did actually manage to make it to filming today. I didn't think I would be able to because I'm very busy with wig work, as you can see, if you're wondering what that is in the background. So yeah, let's get started with today's episode. So today's one is going to be all about the character of Amy Nelson, played by Louise Duprey. Yeah, I felt that if I was to leave you without your episode of Cobble Icons this week, it would make me feel a bit guilty because I know that some of you do enjoy these episodes. So here we go. And if, like me, you're obsessed with Coronation Street or just have a general interest in it, I would definitely recommend subscribing. So Amy Nelson, played by Louise Duprey, was first seen on Coronation Street on the 22nd of March 1993 as a checkout operator in Betty's, which was Weatherfield's local supermarket. She worked alongside other Corrie residents such as Ivy Tilsley, Vera Duckworth, and more importantly, Andy McDonald. And so when the character of Amy was introduced, it was like the sole premise of it was so that Andy McDonald could develop a relationship with someone. And as Andy had already been in the street as a character for around about 4 years, the writers felt that it was about the right time to give him a love interest. Now, at the end of this episode, there is going to be some amazing trivia, so please make sure that you watch until the end, and you will be quite surprised, I think. So, Andy was working in Betty's as well, and when Amy started working there, she really caught his eye. He really liked the look of her and just started to chat to her as and when he could. When they found themselves on both shifts together, Andy would kind of stop his job, which mainly involved like stock replenishment, and so he would kind of stop whatever he was doing and just go over to the checkout and chat to her, much to the dismay of the likes of Reg Holdsworth, who was constantly saying to the people there, "You're there to work, not to play." I mean, Andy seemed to be more attracted to her because she was a bit more older and mature than he was, although in fairness, Andy was quite advanced for his years and he was a lot more mature than his twin brother Steve. Amy, who was born in the 1960s to Trinidadian parents, was an independent parent, so she had a young son of her own to look after. Previous to being in the show, she met her son Dominic's father Errol in 1987 and gave birth to Dominic sometime in around 1988, which is the same year I was born. Now, when Amy and Andy initially started dating in 1993, Amy didn't let on to Andy that she had her son because she felt that, you know, having the tie of a young child would kind of put people off, and it had done previously, so she omitted to telling him that. Yeah, I think in her mind she felt that Andy didn't really want to be saddled with any kind of responsibility at his age, especially with a young child that wasn't biologically his. Yeah, so she thought it best just to kind of leave her son out of the picture. But when Andy did eventually find out about her son Dominic, he was really annoyed. Really annoyed in the sense that she didn't tell him, because he didn't mind at all. He was great with kids, he loved kids, and yeah, he felt a little bit annoyed. But I suppose you need to see it from Amy's point of view in the sense that she's only going by experience, and yeah, you can't really blame her for that. I mean, as they started to progress later on in the relationship, Andy was sort of like an uncle to Dominic, and he grew really fond of him. So much so that there was a time when Andy, Dominic and Amy all went to Knowsley Safari Park and they had a great time because Dominic really loved the animals there. And so over time, their relationship started to get a little bit more serious and they decided that they were going to be exclusive to each other. Andy being Andy, he kind of took his responsibilities of that relationship really far. What he had planned was, instead of going to his university education, he was planning to quit university and work in Betty's the rest of his life, working his way to management so that he could look after himself, Dominic and Amy. Naturally, when Andy's parents found out, Jim and Liz McDonald of the infamous McDonald dynasty, when they found out, they were not pleased at all. They really felt that Amy was kind of taking Andy away from his further education and kind of put all the blame of that onto her, which couldn't be further from the truth. And so Jim and Liz, they did everything in their power to try and persuade Andy to stay on at university, but he was just having absolutely none of it. And so Jim and Liz actually felt that Amy was going to hold Andy back in life, which couldn't be less true actually. Amy was the one that wanted him to stay at university. She was all for getting him to stay there, get his further education so that he could better his life later on after he had his education. So yeah, they got that really wrong. And so as the parents tend to get involved with their children's lives, there was a meeting set up between Liz and Amy. And in September of 1993, Liz and Amy went to number 11 Coronation Street, which is where the McDonalds used to live. They lived there for quite a while actually, but I could do that in another video. Let me know. Yeah, just so they could have an open and frank conversation about the situation. Amy had explained to Liz that Andy had just quit university completely of his own volition. It was absolutely nothing to do with her. But Liz, being the very protective mother that she is, she just didn't believe what Amy was saying, and the conversation started to get a little bit more fraught. And of course, Amy is going to defend her partner, and she said, "Look, it's up to you. You can believe what I say or you don't. It's entirely up to you, But if the choice comes and Andy has to choose between his family and me, he will choose me." Which kind of shut Liz up a little bit. I love Liz, by the way. Now, we move on to the October of 1993. Amy had suddenly decided that she wanted to go on a trip to Trinidad with her mum and her son. And so Andy, being the support that he always was, he helped her pack and, sent her on her way and said, take care and everything, as any caring partner would. Now, away from the street, and also unbeknown to Andy, Amy had actually bumped into her baby daddy in Trinidad. His name was Errol. And of course, when you take yourself off to a country that you've not been to for a while, and then you meet your baby daddy and your son's with you, the inevitable happens. And so they kind of reconnected when they were in Trinidad. Yeah, so they all got back together, and Amy, Errol and Dominic kind of had that family unit back together in Trinidad, which was something that Amy really wanted for her son. So yeah, unfortunately that left Andy kind of out in the cold, but he didn't know this yet. Yeah, so back in England, Andy had little to no communications with Amy. He didn't know a lot about how she was, and he was really missing her. And then as it got to the second half of October, getting into early November, Andy started to get really excited because he was told that Amy was coming home. Well, you would have, wouldn't you, if you hadn't seen your partner for ages and you're like, yay, they're coming home. And so Andy got all excited and he decided he wanted to meet Amy, her mum and Dominic at the airport. But when he got there, he didn't see Amy, and all he met was Amy's mum, Kathleen. So he's kind of standing in the airport and thinking, why is Kathleen only here? Where's my partner? Where's her son? What's going on? And so Kathleen took Andy to one side when they were in the airport, and she explained that unfortunately Amy would not be coming home, and of course nor would Dominic be coming home either. The little twist in the story was that Kathleen was told by Amy to say to Andy, "Look, I don't want to come home because I feel that I'm holding you back from your university studies and in general in life." And so that was the story that Kathleen told Andy. But the real reason would be revealed a little bit later on, so stick around if you want to hear it. Also at this meeting in the airport, Kathleen gave Andy back the engagement ring that he gave to Amy. So I remember watching that fairly recently, and it was quite a sad scene really, because he'd had all this love for Amy and he had this engagement ring that he'd given her, only for it to be given back by his future mother-in-law. I think that's really sad, because he was prepared to give up his university studies, his chosen career and everything for this woman, but she decided otherwise. But this story, it didn't really sit well with Andy, and being the natural truth seeker that he was, he had to get to the bottom of this. So he did a lot of calling round, and he eventually got in contact with one of Amy's friends called Alison. And Alison was quite reticent to say anything to him really. She was one of the closer friends that Amy had there in England. And so yeah, he didn't really want to believe what Kathleen was telling him, and so he was planning to fly out to Trinidad to see what Amy had to say for herself. But the only thing was, he didn't have any of the means to fly out to Trinidad, and so he started asking around if he could borrow the money for the flight. Now around this time his brother Steve was doing quite well in business, and he was also quite arrogant and self-righteous, to be honest. And he said, "No, I'm not paying for the flights for you just to go chasing a girl to some other part of the world. Why don't you write to her instead?" Really? I'm not sure how I would handle that response. How would you? Being told that, just write. It's just as good as going to see someone. I don't think. So yeah, when they're at this airport, he accepts the ring and says to Kathleen to tell Amy, "Okay, I accept this. I feel no ill will for Amy. Please send her my best wishes." And that was the end of that storyline. Okay, so now we get on to the little trivia section that I promised you earlier on. Now, originally, and according to the sources that I found online, the storyliners had actually planned for Amy and Andy to get married, and they were to be the first multiracial couple in Coronation Street history. But it didn't quite work out like this, so the writers had to do quite a speedy rewrite. Now, the reason for this was in October 1993, the actor playing Amy, Louise Duprey, she had really begun to struggle with the fame that she was finding in Coronation Street, having been used to quite a private life. And so the more and more screen time that she got on screen, the more and more she got famous, and she really struggled with this, as I'm sure that a lot of people in the public eye do. I can appreciate that. Yeah, so the more and more scenes that she got, the more and more unwell she felt mentally, and Louise Duprey ended up having a mental breakdown. Yeah, the demands of fame and things, they just got a little bit too much for her, because, like I said, she was kind of just used to having a private life before she joined the street as an anonymous actress. Now, apparently and allegedly, they were actually filming these wedding scenes, and as they were doing them, Louise, she kind of locked herself away in this room as they were filming these scenes because everything had got too much for her. And I imagine that when they were filming these wedding scenes, in Louise's mind, she's like, okay, I'm filming these wedding scenes, I'm going to get more and more and more and more exposure and more famous and more people pestering me and things. And yeah, I can imagine that could be why she locked herself away from filming. And so the Granada TV doctors had to come in to check her out, and they just sent her home that she was very unwell. And yeah, that was the trivia bit over, and I've got some starring trivia, so hang about. Now, the character was actually seen last on screen on the 20th of October 1993, but they had to do a quick recast for a single episode because Louise couldn't return to do this because by that time she'd left. And so they got a different actress to come in to play the part for this single episode. Who did they recast? You'll never guess, or maybe some of you might guess because you're a Corrie geek like I am, but they cast a little known actress by the name of Melanie Brown. Not ringing any bells? That's right, Melanie Brown was to be the future Scary Spice, Mel B. So they'd had Mel B in for one episode to do the quick recast, and yeah, isn't that amazing? Mel B in Coronation Street. Now, of course, Mel B, she looks completely different to Louise Duprey. And so what Corrie had to do was when Mel B was filming these scenes with Nicholas Cochrane, who played Andy McDonald, they had to use like a different lighting technique so that you couldn't really see her. I mean, I suppose she looked similar from behind, but obviously not facially, and so they had to use a different lighting so that they couldn't really see Mel B's face, which is complete contrast now, because when you think about Mel B being on TV, she would always want her face in front of the camera, as I suppose many other stars do, because yeah, they're the star, they deserve to be the centre of attention. Yeah, so that was the star trivia. Now we come to some quite sad information about the story of Louise Duprey. Now, I didn't actually know this until earlier on today when I was finishing off my research. The actress that played Amy Nelson passed away suddenly in the year 2000. Now, according to a couple of sources, and allegedly this was due to a drug overdose. It seems that kind of towards the end of Louise Duprey's life, she'd become a bit of a recluse, and yeah, a bit of a recluse, and didn't really pursue any more acting roles and things. And what makes it worse is, now according to sources, now I can't verify this, but according to sources, her body was actually found a few days later after she died by a housing officer. The housing association were getting a bit concerned about it because people hadn't heard from her for a wee while, so yeah, her body was discovered a few days after, which is really sad. Yeah, a very sad ending to what could have been a really talented artist. Yeah, really sad. Upon hearing of Louise's death, actor Nick Cochrane was said to have been really sorry to hear about her death. He said that when they were filming together, she always seemed relaxed and confident when they were, doing their scenes as Andy and Amy, and that he felt that she always brought great depth to the character, which I think as well. Yeah, Louise was actually survived by her daughter, Marcelle Dupree, who is also an actress. I didn't know this either until today. So, yeah, it's nice to know that she lives on through her daughter. And so, yeah, that brings me to the somewhat short episode of Cobble Icons. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe. That would really help me out and help me to grow my channel. And to get to lots more Corrie geeks like me. Yeah, so please subscribe because I upload these videos every single Sunday. I have said previously to this that I'd like to do them upload them at around 7:30, but this isn't always the case. So what I'll say going forward is they'll always be on a Sunday, but just sometime in the evening. Can't give a guaranteed time, but they'll always be on a Sunday evening. Not too late or too early, just between 7 and 9 p.m. UK time. Yeah, I have a few other commitments like those, so but I do endeavour to have these episodes on every single Sunday. Yeah, so if you're wondering, these in the backgrounds are lace wigs, and for those that don't know, I'm a lace wig designer and creator. So yeah, these are my latest projects, and I have actually got another channel that's dedicated to all things lace wigs. So if you're interested in, you know, how lace wigs are made and what they're made for, or just fancy watching something new, I will link that channel below. And also you can follow me on Instagram. I'll leave the details here and in the description as well. Yeah, so like I said, if you've enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. That would really help me out because it helps to really push my videos out there and flick the algorithm switch. Also, do let me know in the comments if there's any requests that you have for future Cobble Icon episodes. I really would like to see who your favourite characters are, and also if you've got any memories of Amy Nelson from 1993, if that's possible. Also let me know in the comments. Yeah, just comment and type away, or just, yeah, talk about whatever you want down there as long as you're kind. So that's all from me, folks. I shall see you next week with a new episode of Cobble Icons. Take care, be kind to yourself and others, and I'll see you again next week. Ta-ra, Chuck!